O'Reilly. Are your wiper blades chattering, skipping, or squeaking? Don't let streaks or smearing on your windshield compromise your visibility. When it's time to replace your wiper blades, stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts and see our selection. Our professional parts people will even install your new wiper blades while you wait. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today. O'Reilly Auto Parts.
There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today. After 3 years of work, our follow-up to the Meat Eater Fish and Game Cookbook is here. It's the Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, campfire, and camp stove. Here is your book for everything that's best cooked or eaten outside. From grilling to open fire cooking to Dutch ovens to smokers to barbecue to backpacking meals to how to pull off the perfect fish fry. With pit stops along the way for lessons about Ice Age cooking methods and the best 5 ways to construct a cooking fire you can be proud of. And of course, we're focusing on wild game and fish here with over 100 recipes, including stuffed venison burgers 3 ways, wild duck with ahi verde sauce, a jerky made with cola, a gin and tonic made with fire-charred lemons, and grilled frog legs made with a sticky sweet sauce. This ain't your normal cookbook, so be prepared to be surprised. Get your copy now. For more info, visit themeateater.com or buy it wherever books are sold.
The Hunting Collective is presented by Element.
I guess I grew up on an older road.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Hunting Collective. I am Ben O'Brien. This is episode 157. The year's almost over. Christmas is upon us, and Phil T. Engineer is getting in his long winter nap before he emerges in 2021 as a hunter. Hey, Phil.
Hey, I wish I could go down for a long winter's nap. I'm too excited at Christmas to nap, though.
Now, my wife was just talking to me about this. Do you guys send out like a family Christmas card?
We usually do. We did not this year. I think we just got lazy and just didn't even care, really.
Yeah, that makes sense. We never have since we've had kids. We've never done it. And we were just having like a little bit of a debate about, is it weird to just send people a picture of you doing stuff once a year that says like, Merry Christmas, here's a picture of what we look like. Is that what you guys do?
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty much it. We didn't start doing it until, we've probably done it, we've done it for the last 4 years or something, since, my parents do a thing where they have like a whole write-up on their Christmas card. They give like a summary of what every person in the family did that year. And, we have never done that. It's just been like kind of like a goofy picture of us like looking cute, and then it says "Happy Holidays," like may the warmth spread to your loins or something. Yeah.
Warm loins for you this holiday season.
Of course,
warm loins. Now, Charles Rodney, everybody knows my friend Charles the Rabbit Man Rodney, been on the show many times. He writes a full dissertation on the year's events, and I'm talking. My buddy sent me a copy of this. It's like I'd say 1,000, 1,500, maybe 2,000 words, nicely typed up on a piece of paper, and it's got like the picture, like a cover on the front. And then Charles collects these every year, and he's going to make them into a book. And so hopefully we'll have one week, we'll just have him reading that to you, and that's the entire episode. I won't even be on it.
Oh, wow.
It'll probably be the most listened to episode of the history of the show.
Yeah, it'll be like someone reading "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," but it'll be Charles Rodney reading about his life.
What happened this year. It's beautiful. So hopefully you guys feel free to send us what you guys do for holiday cards. And if anybody out there wants to make maybe Photoshop a THC, what you feel like the THC holiday card would be, send them over. A lot of you guys are good at art. A lot of you guys are good at Photoshop. And Phil, he's so depressed that he might need a laugh. He might need something to laugh at this holiday season. So get to work out there. No prizes, just get to work. One brief update before we move on. I'm still not on the People of Maryland Facebook page or Wikipedia page. I'm still not on there. Many people tried to put me on there. They tried everything you could think of. They described me in almost every way you could possibly think of. A lot of people started putting COVID-19 survivor on there to try to really drum up some support and feeling, but it's not working, man. As of right now, I'm not on there. Many people have tried, dozens.
I hate to tell you, I think it's a lost cause, Ben.
You think so? There's nothing we can do? I've got to do something of note. I've got to actually do... Well, maybe in 2021, I'll do something of note and save somebody from a train or something. And then I'll get on there. Yeah,
sure. I mean, shoot your shot, man. Set high goals. That's healthy. It's good.
Maybe in 2021, we'll stage a series of life-threatening events for you where I save you each time. And then we'll have the news there each time to report on it.
Okay, well, we'll have the cult board meet up and talk over that idea. I'm a big thumbs down on that. I'm just going to tell you right off the bat, but we can brainstorm some more.
Big thumbs down. Yeah. A shout out to Barstool. They posted a thing like on their Instagram saying name examples of things that are that you joined that you didn't think were a cult that actually was a cult, and many of you tagged me and Phil in those posts. I probably got tagged 15 to 20 times. So thanks for joining the cult in 2021. But coming up here on this program is Clay Newcomb. Now, Clay Bear Grease Newcomb is an employee of Meat Eater now. Last time he was on the show, he was not, but now he is. We're happy about that. We got into all kinds of things. We nerded out about ethics and the slippery slope fallacy and other logical fallacies. And we started talking, and we got deep into how we look at supporting hunting, how we look at defending hunting, and how we test our own ideologies within what we do in the hunting space. So there's a lot of really good stuff in that, and we're going to get to that really quickly here. But before we do, Phil, you must play the damn jingle.
Work sharp, not so sharp moments, sharp so you don't have to be.
Season 2! Yeah!
Philly, you look scared. Sorry I yelled.
Yeah, it was aggressive. But, hey, you've got to use a stern hand sometimes, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, because sometimes you don't play the jingle, and I get pissed.
Mm-hmm.
So this one is from Ryan Sapina, and he says, Ben, Phil, when it comes to not-so-sharp moments in the field, my family has a few of them. From shooting compound bows with no arrows at giant bulls to having to shoot down trees with shotguns because a goose got stuck in the canopy, to now joining a hunting-based cult during a global pandemic. These are the moments that come from a lifetime of hunting and I guess waking up way too early for days upon end. However, when I think of a not-so-sharp moment, my mind comes to one instance that happened a few years back on the eastern plains of Colorado. Me and my dad went out for a rifle antelope hunt in October for just a couple of days. We both had obligations, and this hunt was going to be a quick getaway. So we threw our hunting gear together and hopped in the car. The year before had been a record rain year on the plains, and since it was teal season, we decided to throw a few decoys and shotguns in the truck just in case some birds were flying. And when we got there, oh boy, were they flying. We quickly ditched our plan to hunt antelope on the first morning and decided to hit a little prairie pothole that was swarming with green-winged teal the night before. We got to our spot before first light and began throwing out some decoys. Now, because of the warm weather at the time and the fact that both of us forgot our hip boots, we figured we would just pull our pants up and wade into the water to pick everything up And usually, these little ponds on the prairie are little more than a couple of feet deep. That is, in a regular year. As soon as the sun rose, teal came dive-bombing in, one flock after another, and we soon had a limit of teal. And when the time came to pick up ducks and decoys, that's when the show started, the real show. I rolled up my pants and took 3 steps into the water, and on the 4th, I sank 2 feet into the murky, thick mud at the bottom of the pond, completely soaking my pants, which, in fact, were the only pair I had brought. My dad sat on the shore laughing his ass off, and I was in a predicament. The mud was almost like quicksand, and I had to use a lot of energy just to move one single foot. We still had 12 decoys and 5 teal in the middle of this pond that needed to be picked up, so I decided to say screw it and just wade in. I was past the point of no return. While in the water without my knowledge, my pants had unrolled and gotten stuck in the mud along with my feet. The next step I took did 2 things simultaneously. It pulled my pants down and into the murky water and got my legs tangled up in the pants to the point where I lost my balance and face planted right into the green marsh water. My dad had never laughed so hard, and I had never been the victim of such malicious and random circumstances in my life. I picked myself up from the mud, swam out, got the ducks and the decoys, and whimpered back to shore. Having wet my only clothes and broken my pride, our antelope hunt was cut short. But for my dad, he brought home a favorite tale to tell at any family gathering. We got back home and cooked up a delicious teal dinner, which my dad now famously calls plato de vergüenza, which is translated to duck of shame. Play the jingle, Phil.
Work sharp, not so sharp moments. Sharp so you don't have to be. Season 2! Yeah!
All right, what'd you think about Duck of Shame, Phil?
Have you ever seen The Never-Ending Story, Ben?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, I was just picturing him just sinking deeper and deeper into the mud while I cried. That's how I felt.
Oh, well, sorry. The only thing I remember from Neverending Story is the flying dog, and I believe its name was Falcor or something like that.
Yep.
The creepiest flying dragon dog thing. That's all I remember.
That's part of it. There's also a scene where a horse drowns in quicksand.
So you were picturing that horse when you were thinking of our great listener, Ryan Sapina. Well, Ryan, congratulations for getting your pants pulled off by some mud. We are going to send you a Work Sharp field sharpener for all your troubles. And of course, as always, go to worksharp.com or go to the Work Sharp YouTube page to check out those folks and their weekly sharpening tips. One of those is me sharpening stuff in my garage. So you're really going to enjoy that. And then next week, we have the great showdown of all the dumbest things you all have done in the cult this year, and a big-time prize for the big-time winner of the not-so-sharp moment of the year next week on the final episode of 2020. Okay, Phil, we're gonna need you to put your Dr. Phil hat on. Okay, can you do that for me?
Yeah, let me go grab it.
All right, come on right back. Phil's back. He's got his Dr. Phil hat on, and we've got to solve some issues, some deep-seated issues within the hunting space. Now, we already said that Clay Newcomb and myself are going to be talking a lot about the intricacies of hunting ethics, how we support each other, how we talk about and to each other, and what we say in a public forum to defend hunting, defend each other. This email I got from Michael Buchanan gets to that point pretty well. He says, I was listening to episode 154 where you and Mark Kenyon were talking about supporting our hunting culture and our fellow hunters. You can tell he's from the South because the next sentence starts with, y'all's conversation made me realize how negative I've been recently toward a selection of hunters in my current area. I grew up hunting whitetails in the Georgia Piedmont on a private hunting lease. I wouldn't say the habitat was that well managed there, but the hunting was good and you could count on a club member to get at least 120 class buck every other year. Well, I finished up my master's at UGA and got a forestry job in North Carolina. The company I work for owns land in southeastern Virginia and northeastern North Carolina, and I'm blessed to have around 600 acres of company land to hunt in both states. Initially, I had built on my head how I now had a realistic opportunity to kill multiple big deer a year and was super stoked for this hunting season. Well, there's a type of hunting there I wasn't prepared for. Dog hunters. Now, Phil, I know what you're thinking. People aren't hunting dogs. They're using dogs to hunt.
Oh, whew, I was worried. Thank you.
Yeah, I could see you getting worried over there. He said, my expectations at the start of the season were that the occasional dog would cross me in the woods. The reality is once rifle season kicks in, you occasionally don't encounter hounds chasing deer, which means most of the time you see them. The days of my quiet sits in the tree stand on Saturday during rifle season are over. Trail cam footage has shown that it didn't take very long for the pressure to push deer to be more nocturnal, as well as show me that dogs are running deer across land, not least to their own hunters. The typical dog hunter will tell you dogs can't read posted signs, but they don't tell you that plenty of them release their dogs on land they can't hunt with the intention of pushing deer onto property they can hunt. This is a general lackadaisical attitude toward dogs running deer on land they don't have permission on, and it leaves a sour taste in my mouth. In Virginia, east of the Blue Ridge, even if a landowner tells the dog hunter not to come on their property, dog hunters have the legal right to retrieve their dogs at any hour of the day as long as they don't carry a gun, allowing them to run deer across their land, even if they don't have permission. I'm trying to put a positive spin on things, but by saying I now have more opportunities for grouse, ducks, woodcock, and quail, but I'm still bitter. I guess my question is, am I in the wrong for wanting legislation to sort of rein in the dog hunters, either through a contiguous acres limitation or its own later season? Still hunting is definitely a minority in this area, so it's not like our opinions carry that much weight compared to the dog hunters, but were dog hunting to fall out of legal favor, I have a hard time feeling bad for them. Trying to stay positive, but having a hard time. Over there in the South, Michael Buchanan. Phil, when you think of running deer with dogs, do you have anything that comes to mind? Do you kind of wince at the idea that people would be chasing deer with dogs and shooting them on the run? Or do you feel like that's a normal thing?
That honestly doesn't really jump out at me as something that is like egregious. I honestly I kind of fall into the more like if you're going to try to still hunt in that kind of environment, that's just something you have to deal with. I don't know. I don't see legislation being like a feasible solution. I don't know about you.
Well, dog hunting with deer with dogs specifically is outlawed in I think all but 8 states.
Oh, really? Okay, this is news to me then.
Yeah, I mean dog hunting has been going on. Using domesticated canines to chase wild animals around has been going on for thousands of years, 15,000 years in some estimations. Yeah, I guess we should note that dog hunting is commonly how we refer to this, but we're not hunting dogs, as I said. But yeah, in the mid 1700s and into the late 1800s and into the turn of the century, even in this country, there was a lot of pushback for hunting deer specifically with dogs. I looked up some of the legislation. The Virginia House of Burgesses passed a law in 1738 that required owners of deer dogs to keep their animals confined, except when they were actually involved in a deer hunt. 1876, Wisconsin became the first state to ban dog hunting altogether. The Adirondack Deer Law of 1888 imposed tight structures and restrictions on dog hunting in New York. And then by 1920, all the northeastern states had outlawed dog hunting for deer altogether. And today, Phil, it's a predominantly deep South legality. The states where this is still legal are spread across the South. And many of the states that Michael was talking about, and many of the states that I've never hunted for deer, is where this is legal. So I've never run across this in the woods. I don't know a whole lot about the tradition itself. I've never, that I can think of, run deer with dogs. I've run many other things with dogs, including upland game birds, pigs. Man, I can think of other things that I've used dogs in the field for. But I think this is an interesting thing for us to think about, especially because what we're going to be talking about in a minute with Clay Newcomb, that we have these, and we've certainly talked about this on this show before, we have these dividing lines in America around the pursuits, even within the same species, how we pursue those species, and then the perspective culturally and the traditions, and how we socialize all these ideas. And so Michael is not wrong to probably have some disdain for people running dogs places they shouldn't be. And quite honestly, in places where, like Virginia, where this has been studied before, I think a lot of what comes out is that, hunting deer with dogs is an important tradition, and it helps manage deer like any other type of hunting, but it generates concerns from hunters, landowners, everybody. And most of those concerns are around trespassing, dogs, trespassing hunters, hunting from near roads. And a lot of this borders on just ethical issues. And so it's interesting to hear you say, Phil, that as a non-hunter, it doesn't seem like a big deal. Do you feel like that's because you know that we use dogs for other things?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe I've just been spending too much time editing Cal's podcast where it's just become the snort show where he's just constantly talking about how adorable his dog is. But like it's weird too.
Gotta have a sidekick.
Yeah, I feel like I'm pretty like sensitive to this kind of stuff. So it doesn't really irk me. So I don't, I can't explain why.
That's interesting, man. I don't have a problem with it. But if I was in Michael's situation, sitting in a tree stand and dogs were running by all day and I felt like my rifle season was ruined, I probably would think differently, but there's deer hunters who believe that our sport is under attack, and they might be surprised to learn that the country as a whole probably still overwhelmingly supports the preservation of this tradition and a lot of other traditions. But as you'll hear us talk about with Clay Newcomb in a second here, there's not a lot of folks fighting for these type of what I would call fringe privileges or fringe pursuits at the very least in our space. And it creates quite the paradox. And it is hard to understand where people in Alabama and Georgia and North Carolina might be coming from if you're sitting in Montana or Connecticut or California or someplace where it might seem abhorrent to even think about chasing deer with dogs at all. So I say all this to say this is a great example of what you're going to hear me and Clay Newcomb talk about. Something, like I said, that's paradoxical in nature, something that's hard for us to suss out, not having been in that southern deer hunting culture with dogs. And glad to hear, Phil, that it's not right off the bat as you first hear about it, something that you think is a worry for you ethically, or as someone who's about to join the hunting cult, something you might turn your eye towards if you hear about it.
Yeah, I just got to get Mango to a trainer as soon as possible.
Oh yeah, Mango. You think Mango would? She would definitely chase deer, right?
Oh yeah, very poorly, but she would do it, and she'd be stoked about it.
Well, I would go back to. I was reading this once I read this email from Michael. I went back and I was reading this Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries report from years ago, from like a decade ago, called "Hunting with Hounds: A Way Forward," and it listed out the two sides of this. And this was 2007, so we're some 13 years later, and we're still there. And I think as long as deer hunting with dogs in those states holds, we'll still have those same sort of back and forth. If you've ever been to the Blue Ridge Mountains, it's a beautiful place, and there's a lot of people that would tell you the way of life is chasing deer with dogs. And how dare you try to ban it because you don't like it? But as you'll see, there's plenty of people that don't hunt that we would call anti-hunters that are happy to take advantage of this argument within the hunting ranks, of this disagreement within the hunting ranks. So it is full of shades of gray. We're going to discuss just that this week with our buddy, Guard the Gate Man, Clay Newcomb. Please enjoy. Clay Newcomb, what is up?
Hey, Ben O'Brien. I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. It's cold here in Arkansas, a little snow on the ground. That's kind of what's up.
That is what's up. You haven't really caught up with you since the breaks. A lot of news since then. You now are a meat eater. You're a meat eating son of a bee. Is what you are right now.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I've been working for Meat Eater since October the 5th. And it's been an exciting run so far, working on a lot of projects. And I'm still publishing Bear Hunting Magazine, so I still do that. But I'm also working full time for Meat Eater. So,
Well, we're damn glad to have you. If you haven't seen what Clay's been up to, you've been really missing out. We have a video on acorns on the website.
Acorns, Ben.
Acorns?
Acorns.
I'm not even. I know. Ranella is hot on this debate. I feel
you don't want to get involved.
I don't really want to get involved. No, I'll say whatever you want me to say. I will capitulate in this. Acorns, all good to me. Akerns. Acorns. I'm in.
Yeah.
And if I need to defend that against Steve, I take your side, and we'll put him down. Don't worry.
Okay, that's what I like about you, Ben.
Yep, I will.
As I understand it, about 25% of the country pronounces that word as acorns. The 75% would pronounce it the other way, which is not even possible to come out of my mouth. I can't even say it.
Yeah.
So more power to however you want to do it, though.
Yeah, I mean, I blame the liberal media. Is what I blame for this for the 75%. They are mistreating acorns, and you and I will stand against it.
There you go.
I will stand next to you or behind you, wherever, or in front of you, wherever I got to stand. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I got it.
O'Reilly Auto Parts are in the business of keeping your car on the road. O'Reilly Auto Parts offer friendly, helpful service and the parts knowledge you need for all your maintenance and repairs. If you're confused about what part you need, like what wipers are going to be the best, what replacement headlights are going to be the best, go into O'Reilly and talk to the people that work there because they're great and they're super friendly and they'll get you squared away where you walk out knowing you got the right thing. They've got thousands of parts and accessories in stock, either in-store or online, so you never have to worry if you're in a jam. Do you need your windshield wipers replaced? You need a brake light fixed? You need some quick service? They'll help you find the right part or point you to the nearest local repair shop for help. The professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts are your one-stop shop for all things auto do-it-yourself, and you can find what you need in-store or online. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit us at O'ReillyAuto.com/MeatEater. That's O'ReillyAuto.com/MeatEater. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today. You ever get that feeling you're stuck inside staring at screens and a primal urge kicks in? You crave wide open spaces, fresh air, the chance to connect with the land. Well, maybe it's time to find your own piece of the wild, but searching for property can be a maze. That's where Land.com comes in. They got millions of listings across the country, from mountain ranches to hidden fishing holes. Their search tools are like a seasoned guide helping you narrow down what you want. Land.com isn't just about buying and selling. It's about finding a place to hunt, fish, explore, or simply sit by a campfire and listen to the crickets. So head over to Land.com today to turn one day into today. Because trust me, there's nothing quite like the feeling of standing on your own piece of earth.
Well, there's a bunch, in all seriousness, there's a bunch of good content on the MeatEater.com. You and I are feverishly hammering away on this secret podcast that will soon reach these airwaves of the MeatEater Podcast Network. So look forward to that, of course. But we're also want to tell everybody that we're going to have you at some regular cadence next year, probably monthly, once a month, to come on and update us on a philosophy that you introduced to us, I want to say, a year and some change ago on this show, and I'm sure talked about it on the MeatEater podcast as well. Really, you came in and you gave what I would call a soliloquy on this subject, and you turned me a little bit. You turned you changed my perspective a bit on, and we were just talking before we hit record, and I think a few things you said hit home. But this philosophy, explain to people who haven't heard this philosophy around this term, guard the gate.
Ben,
So this idea of guard the gate is essentially that inside of North American hunting, the entry point for those who would seek to tear down, and that's just the truth. That's not a spin. I mean, there are active groups of people, very well funded, very well organized, that have made it their life goal, their career goals to dismantle North American hunting. And there's very many reasons why people do this. It's massively complex, and I think we would all know some of these reasons. But these groups always are going to attack. They're going to find an entry point into our sphere through a specific place, and usually that place is a weak point inside of our world. And just the most simple example to me is bear hunting. So if you were to look at North American hunting in general, like the rational arguments against squirrel hunting or elk hunting even would be, it's real easy for people to connect with the idea of eating elk. It's easy for them to connect with the idea of, maybe not squirrel hunting, but whitetail hunting, eating a whitetail. Bears are these charismatic megafauna. It's very easy for people to build a narrative that people buy into, that bears shouldn't be hunted. There's different methods of hunting bears that are hard to understand for some people. We use hounds to chase bears. We use bait to chase bears. So it creates basically a gateway, a low-hanging fruit, a soft entry point for people to go, hey, this is bad. These guys are barbarians. And I think in times past, the hunting community has recognized that. I mean, people by default, by unconscious default, recognize that and naturally steer away from some of these lower hanging fruit type situations, which would be trapping as well. But the thing is that if they can take that, if they can tear down that from an intellectual standpoint, from a legislative standpoint, even from a non-intellectual standpoint, if they can tear down why hunting bears is no longer relevant in 2020, if they can tear that down and turn that into functional legislation, turn that into the way that the culture is shifted, then it's just a matter of time before they do that with something else. Because the truth is, when you really understand bear hunting, when you understand it as a management tool, when you understand that we utilize bears more than, I say this all the time, Ben, and I mean, honestly, like if we were sitting in a court of law and I had to plead my case of why you should kill a bear over killing a deer, I think I would win, because we use more of a bear for utilitarian purpose than we do a deer. I mean, we tan the hide, we use the fat, we use the meat. So my point is that any weak point in our architecture is bad news for all of us. So if we are people that are interested in the preservation of the North American hunting model and our culture, North American hunting culture, then it's in all of our best interest to guard these lower hanging fruits, to guard the gate. And that's a stretch for people, because not everybody is interested in baiting bears. Not everybody is interested in following a hound and killing a bear over a hound. And our point is that you don't have to be interested in that. We're not trying to tell everybody they need to do that, but we are saying if you love what we have, then it's in your best interest to guard it all. So like this, it's an idea of unification. It's also guard the gate is an idea. So actually guarding the gate means that we're educating people. We're educating people about bear hunting, about trapping, about why these things really are absolutely is just as legit as all these other types of hunting that people are very comfortable with,
Yep. Yeah. Well, there's so much within that interests me, and the reason why I think we can do it once a month, we probably do it once a day or once a week. Once we'll go through here some of the instances of where hunting is being attacked, as you described there, as on the fringes. But there's a couple of things within the guard the gate mentality that I agree with, and there's some things I want to talk through with you here. And I think we did last time. If folks can go to hear our whiskey and ethics on bear baiting and bear hunting that we did last year with Clay. But there's the slippery slope argument, right? Like in an illegal sense, the slippery slope argument asserts that what in logic and critical thinking, and this often comes in political rhetoric and rhetoric we hear on the media, that a relatively small first step leads to a chain of related events culminating in like something happened of more significance.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads to the logical fallacy within the slippery slope argument that I've always had a problem with. I understand it, but I've always kind of had a problem with it. And the way that I think you combat this slippery slope fallacy, the logical fallacy within, is to make a case or to demonstrate an example of that slippery slope logic coming into play, right? Like if somebody gets in for bears, I guess first I would ask you that question. Do you feel like we're on a slippery slope here? Does that align with the guard the gate mentality, or is there a little more
It's
nuance
definitely part of it, Ben. Yeah. And I realize how that could be perceived as trying to make people fearful in order to cause them to act. Because I am saying that it is a slippery slope, and we've got tons. But what I'm also saying is that we've got 150 years of or 100 years of history and examples of that slippery slope happening. And it's happening this week in different parts of the country. So it's not just rhetoric. There's actual examples of hunts being taken away that will probably never get back.
Yeah. And that's it. That's where I kind of draw the line with the logical fallacy within this slippery slope argument is if we're able to demonstrate, if we're able to look at the slippery slope argument, because it happens with Second Amendment, it happens in a lot of rhetorical conversations like this one, where someone is presenting an idea and that person is using that idea to eliminate the middle ground, is to say like we can't have a middle ground because if we give an inch, we're going to lose the middle ground and possibly lose it all. So I would admit to some conflict over this idea because I do see some logical fallacies within the argument, but I also see some things that are real here, and we're going to go over some of them in this case. So as we often get into in this podcast, where things get interesting is where you have a duality, where you have a dualism at play, right? Where you have like, hey, listen, man, the slippery slope argument in this case rings true because there are some examples here, but we also have to really be cognizant of slipping down into our own logical fallacies and losing the middle ground ourselves. So that's ultimately why I think this is a topic that we can go on and on and on and on about, because I think those two things are likely true at once here, or at least parallel to each other,
Yeah.
And does that track with how you'd like to explore this? Because I really think that we're going to go over some examples here, but like I said, I really think there is, once we crack this open, we're going to discover something about ourselves and the way we think about our own hunting pursuits, and folks that come along on that.
Yeah,
route.
it sounds fair enough to me, Ben. Really, and I think it'll help me understand this even more hearing you talk. Because I don't want to be an alarmist. I want to be somebody that's got both feet plugged right into reality. With a intent to find solutions. The good news is that we've still got a lot of great stuff going on in North American hunting. But humans are extremely comfortable with everything being good today with a negative forecast for tomorrow and us not being that worried about it. So we might as well have this conversation.
Oh, well, and then you get into all of the metaphors and all the things that are happening here. There's the domino fallacy. There's like the dam burst fallacy. There's all these like really interesting concepts that can help structure how you think about things. And maybe I'm just nerding out on this, but I do think that
I don't think maybe is a really a question here, Ben.
Totally. Yeah. Let's go deep. Let's go deep. Yeah, this is definitely in the happy hour podcast like we had last week. But I do think I want to explore how, the ways we construct these arguments and the ways that we present them and the ways that we're influenced by what's happening around us. And as you said before we hit record, find a way to not be alarmist, to not be fear-mongering, to not fall into many of the traps that we see in mainstream media, many of the traps that we hear in our own divided space within hunting. And so ultimately to take apart, what someone might use as political rhetoric and find a healthy way to examine the important stuff baked within that, the core idea that we need to crunch through and have some uncomfortable conversations about. And so that's what I look forward to, and I know we will. And I appreciate you coming along for that ride.
Yeah, man. I just jotted down a couple of states and provinces that have lost significant portions of their bear hunting, Ben.
Yeah.
And California, Maine spring hunt, British Columbia grizzly hunt, Colorado lost hounds and bait, lost their spring hunt. There's just so many examples.
Yeah.
So many examples.
Well, let's go through some because, we talked with Brian Lynn from the Sportsman's Alliance here some weeks ago about the New Jersey bear situation. And we went over this. And I agree. And I told him, I said, in addressing the hunting industry dogma when I first took off this podcast, I wanted to kind of address, is trophy hunting good or bad? Is bear hunting good or bad? Is baiting good or bad? And actually address it and look at it and not just accept what I was told in the hunting industry, accept the dogma from our world and really beat at this. A couple things I've learned. One, ideological veganism is misguided, in my opinion. I've explored that in depth, and I think it's misguided. And I also think the animal rights mentality is misguided in a lot of ways. And I think the animal rights ideology is something that leads, I hope you would agree, that leads people to want to ban bear hunting, that leads people to want to kick the gate in and change things within where we're at. And so I think that exploration means something here because we have to determine why are people fighting so hard against, particularly bear hunting, but in a sense, hunting on its fringes and trapping too.
Yeah.
So give us you have a good example you're telling me about from Washington State. I feel like we need a real concrete example of something that's happening now in our context. For COVID times, even might be nice. Yeah. But you have an example from Washington.
Yeah. So last week I talked to the lady named Marie Newmiller. She's with the Inland Northwest Wildlife Council, which they are a hunting conservation group out of Washington, focused on Washington. But I think they're focused on the Pacific Northwest, but they're based out of Washington. She wrote in actually to Meat Eater and told a story of a Washington State Game Commission meeting that she was in attendance to virtually because of COVID. And she often goes to these, so she's got a lot of experience. And basically because the spring bear hunt in Washington, which is pretty limited, as I understand it, it's a draw. It's a quite limited spring season, but they do have a spring season in Washington. And she said that because it was the first big game hunt of the spring, it came up in this quarter in their session. And a couple of things that were interesting is that she said there were 12 people that stood up not stood up. They were online, but they spoke out. Zoomed in. They spoke out against the bear hunt. And as I understood it, it was kind of led by an out-of-state special interest anti-hunting mountain lion group out of California. And so basically inside this meeting, the dynamics of human nature, when you hear something negative spoken, she felt like it empowered a whole bunch of people who maybe weren't even that interested in it to come in and and speak negatively about it. And she was the only person. I think there were 13 comments, and she was the only person that stood up and said, she said, "Hey, this is wildlife management. This is the way we've always managed our bears. Our bears are thriving. If we take this away, we're losing a management tool. We're using a part of our hunting heritage, which is important to some people." And so her whole thing was, where were the hunters? Where were the hunters inside this meeting? And she brought up a great point that, and we know this, but it helped me to hear it from her, is that we need to do a better job as hunters of telling our game commissions what we feel like they're doing right. The squeaky wheel is heard. And her question, was just that. Where are the bear hunters? The second thing that she brought up was that COVID, because everything has become virtual these days. COVID-19, the pandemic, has given access to anybody basically to attend some of these high-level meetings. And I'm not sure the protocol for who gets to go to what meetings, but this meeting in Washington, all you had to do was reserve a place at the commission meeting, and you were sent a Zoom link, and you could attend and you could speak and public comment stuff. And so her question was, her statement was, is that these out-of-state special interest groups now have an even easier reach into game commission meetings. And that was pretty telling. She also brought up that in the commission meeting, while they were talking about the spring bear hunt, the commission is mandated to report the comments that they received during certain periods of time about specific topics. And they reported that they had received 540 negative comments on the Washington spring bear hunt. And Ben, they were mandated to report that. And those 540 emails were form emails from a couple of anti-hunting groups out of California.
Yeah.
And it just it was wild, because you can see how that would turn. I mean, some of these commissioners aren't hunters. She said one of the commissioners specifically is not a hunter at all, a commissioner on their wildlife council. And you can see how just like the overwhelming vibe of all this was negative. And what I pulled from her talk of the forum emails was, that was powerful. Touche to the anti-hunting groups that did that, and again, where are the hunters, and that's powerful stuff.
Yeah, there's so much that goes into I just, as you were mentioning this, started trying to read a little bit about the Washington bear hunting situation itself. It just goes to show you each one of these situations is so different, and there are, but they have commonalities, and one of them is there's the idea that people are wantonly murdering bears, and you don't imagine that somebody that thinks that will do anything to stop you from doing that. That's what's on what you're talking about. It's on display. It's almost as if the idea of hunting and its traditions, and it's important to us, and it's something that we value, and it provides us food and all these other things, could never pale in comparison as a driver of action to people are murdering bears. We must stop it. And so maybe this is what you're giving us is a tangible example of the motivating factors on either side. And we've seen this time and time again that anti-hunters or people that want to stop hunting seem to be well-read and well-practiced and coming in with a real mission here. And hunters seem to kind of be defensive and sit back and only defend when there's a real stated threat in the public forum.
Yeah.
Rather than going to the game commission in a proactive way.
Yeah. One of the things that Maurice mentioned that they said in this meeting was that I think 4% of the people in Washington are hunters, and an even smaller percentage of those people are spring bear hunters. And so their question was, why are we even doing this? Which that's a tough one to take on the cheek I mentioned that to Steve Brunella on the Meteor podcast, which you can hear some of our conversation. It wasn't as in depth as what we're doing right now. And Steve made a great point, which I was glad to hear. It added some fodder to my guard the gate. Is that he said this is a democratic society, but not everything is democratic. And his example was, when we go to war, do we take a vote? I mean, does every person in the whole country get to vote on? Do we, shoot a missile over there? I mean, his point was well taken to me, is that wildlife management is not designed to be a democratic process. It's really not. I mean, it kind of sounds crazy to say it, but it's not. I mean, we've in this country, the reason we had such success in bringing back wildlife is because we've left it to the professionals. We've left it to scientific wildlife management. And I mean, that's a big platform we stand on and scream out all the time, is that, hey, we're leaving this to the professionals. And that's a strong case. It's a strong case for us to say that, is that this is not a democratic process. If we said we're going to ban tennis, if 51% of people in this country don't like tennis, I would ban tennis, and golf.
Because it hurts those poor little yellow balls that get beat up all the time.
Right. So I mean, the point is just, not everything is supposed to be just because 51% of us like it.
Yeah, I mean, if you examine what Steve is saying, is borne out in our model of wildlife conservation, and thought out by the folks who enacted it at the turn of the century and in the 1930s, and then written down and codified by Shane Mahoney and Dr. Valerius Geist and folks in the 80s and 90s and up until today, where they just published last year a book on the subject. And it starts off by saying, addressing ownership, right? Like, who owns wildlife?
Right.
If I own it, then I can tell you what we're going to do with it. So it starts off by saying, man, it's a public trust. Right. And it means, right, fish and wildlife are held by the public. We own them. State and federal governments are going to manage them. Through the state and federal government, we own them, right? And we are putting in charge state and federal government, who have employed biologists and ecologists to help us figure out wildlife management, right? And that's where the part of the allocation of wildlife by law comes in. And then you get to wildlife should only be killed for a legitimate purpose. And then you come all the way down to science is the proper tool for the discharge of wildlife policy. And we are entrusting, as the public, the state and federal governments here and the agencies that they've created to do this with the discharge of that wildlife policy.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that is built out in kind of a cascading set of ideals in those tenets of our wildlife model. And I've read the books and broken them down and going after this as much as I can. And again, taking a few swings at the dogma in the hunting space, like only we can tell you how we should hunt. Taking a few swings at that idea, you come back to chaos would be ballot box biology throughout this country.
Yeah.
Because then you would have ultimately, and what you have here is a bunch of people who don't hunt voting on what we do with wildlife, or a bunch of people that don't understand the population dynamics, don't understand anything about it, cohabitation, voting on how we manage wildlife with little to no knowledge of what they're voting on, other than
right.
The easy emotional elements of kill or not kill.
Ben, you said something earlier that when you said it, I thought about it, because I would have totally agreed with you. And you tell me what you think about this. You said that a lot of these, most of these anti-hunters are well educated, well spoken, and really know their stuff. I think most of them that are on the front end and on the top end of this argument do.
Yeah, let me define that as like activists, people that are activists.
Yeah.
In the sense that you're explaining in Washington.
Yeah.
Those folks are there because they know what's going on. Now, we've had some animal rights activists on this show that don't know a bear from an elk. So
Yeah.
shades of gray there for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, continue.
No, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I just want to, encourage people. Like, the reason that the anti-hunting community and their message is so well received is because it's an extremely dumbed down, easy idea to get behind if you don't have a lot of knowledge. And so, like, I think in general, like if we got the average listener of this podcast in a room with an average person that said they were anti-hunting, I'm pretty confident that our guys would, in the court of law, like, have way more information, way more persuasive, legitimate, rational arguments. So anyway, I say all that to say I'm pretty unimpressed with the anti-hunting world. I really am, and I'm not.
I know. I laugh because I've been there, man, and I agree with you. You know where I've been.
Yeah.
I've attempted to find people I thought were thought leaders, or at least leaders of these organizations that have large followings, and Paul Bashir and Anonymous for the Voiceless is the most recent example of that. And I find these people to be militant in their activism, but well-intended in their thought processes, and I find them just to be people, flawed as we might be, you and I might be, in our own thought processes about hunting.
Right.
I mean, I guarantee there's some chinks in our armor in the way we think about it that years from now we'll be like, man, I'm glad that I evolved from where I was. But at its core level, the knowledge of the natural world, the knowledge of how we relate to, manage, live with wild creatures is just, I haven't found it. I found this cursory understanding of the emotions.
Right.
This acknowledgement of the emotions and this kind of slavery to the emotions that is, it goes along the lines of that original dogma that I heard when I first got in the hunting industry, that anti-hunters are all emotional with no facts. I said, well, let me go explore that, kick the door down on that, and see if those guys are right or wrong. And this is one of the ones where I'm like, man, when I return to the original statement, it really is as true as it was when I first heard it.
We got the short end of the stick on this deal. I mean, like, we have to really know our stuff. We have to really have information, knowledge, the correct. I mean, I think our intent matters, have the correct heart motivation. Like, inside this argument, like, it's real easy to jump on the other side. It's harder to get on our side, but it takes more intentionality. And I think that's what we're trying to say these days is, man, the base level knowledge, ability to articulate, the ability to understand the macro system of North American hunting, and the average hunter needs to come way up. I mean, in 1980, nobody knew a thing about white-tailed deer hunting. I mean, guys were just guessing on how to kill deer. In 2020, my 9-year-old son knows more knowledge and information, let me say, than probably my dad did in 1980. Like, what deer do, where they go, why they do it. That's what has to happen with this. Like, we have to become really knowledgeable, confident, merciful. And that's what I've seen inside of your frequency, Ben, is these aren't bad people necessarily. They're really not. It's and I like that because, we're not. This war is not against flesh and blood. It's a ideological battle. It is, and it's a functional legislative battle. Yes, it is. It's a political battle. Yes, it is. But it also plays out really functionally inside of our everyday lives as we interact with our communities, as we interact on social media, as we portray and live out the lifestyle of a modern North American hunter. And I think that's where we can all improve ourselves and acquire knowledge.
I love it, man. It's extremely well said. And the way that I've come to build upon this in my own life and try to display that on this show is that in the face of a person or a group of people who has built a narrative, right? They build a narrative in their head. And this happens, as you said, on the political spectrums. It happens in our own world. Most people, their logic is narrative based.
Yeah.
This is how the world is. This is the story I believe to be true, and I'm going to fit the truth into this apparatus I've built to kind of insulate myself from maybe objective truth.
Yeah.
And so I'm building everything into a narrative. This happens with right wing and left wing, anti-hunting and hunting. And the thing that, in the philosophy that I've come to really appreciate, and I didn't always have this, when I first came into this show and to speaking publicly about this, I was like, get rid of grip and grins. That was my first. I was mad. I was mad at the hunting industry. I wanted it to change, but I didn't understand what I was talking about. I didn't know what I was saying. I was presenting loss instead of change. And the example of exploring these ideas, why would I do the thing to an anti-hunter that they are doing to me? If they are playing an emotional, narrative-based logic, and that's how they move through the world, and I feel that to be cheap, I feel that to be have almost no value in terms of critical thinking, why would I then develop my own narrative against the one that they've developed? Why would I not first look at how I think about hunting, the values that I believe that it inserts into our lives, and try to beat the crap out of that first, and try to take the narrative I've built in my head and kick the door in on that in order to then face them by saying, I've done the work here.
Right.
Internal work. I've done the internal work to say what is and what isn't true about hunting itself.
Yeah.
Then you feel like you're empowered then to call them out on the work they haven't done with the fallacies that are built into the animal rights ideology.
Yeah.
And so hopefully there's some real strength in that, man. It's hard to do, but
man, what you just described, the internal process that you just described of basically deconstructing our hegemon, the hegemon being like the filter through which we view life, that is default, ingrained, unrecognizable, often invisible, like being able to deconstruct that and go into something objectively without bias. And that's really hard. I mean, like massively hard for a human to do that, because we're successful because like when I say successful, I mean like even like biologically successful and relationally successful. And so much of our world is built upon these narratives that we create about ourselves, about our family, about where we live. So to do what you're describing, Ben, is really difficult. And I can't say that I've like, I attempt to do that. And I attempt to do it. I don't know how successful I've been. But I like the idea. I mean, I love it's not an idea. I mean, it can be a reality, but interesting. Yeah. It's good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, how can you truly defend something unless you've explored its weaknesses? If we really were building a fortress around hunting as some pearl that we needed to protect within our lives and the lives of the people around us, we would have to check the fortress for some crumbling infrastructure. We would have to check the walls and be like, is this going to hold up when somebody attacks it? Is this going to hold up when somebody attacks it? What about this part of it? What about this? What about this? What about that? And so in building the gate, to guard, I think we also have to try to kick our own gates in, and try to move in a way that we've already tested. We've already proof tested this in our own minds and with people that believe what we believe, and challenged ourselves. And man, you're stronger in the defense of it when you get there. I think I know that to be true, because when I go into a conversation with an anti-hunter who thinks I'm a murderer, I have nothing but confidence in the ideas I'm about to articulate.
Yeah.
Because I've been looking into them a good bit. And then I've been trying to realize where I could be wrong. And then when I find those weaknesses, then I allow myself to, get rid of them on my own.
O'Reilly Auto Parts are in the business of keeping your car on the road. O'Reilly Auto Parts offer friendly, helpful service and the parts knowledge you need for all your maintenance and repairs. If you're confused about what part you need, like what wipers are going to be the best, what replacement headlights are going to be the best, go into O'Reilly and talk to the people that work there because they're great and they're super friendly and they'll get you squared away where you walk out knowing you got the right thing. They've got thousands of parts and accessories in stock, either in-store or online, so you never have to worry if you're in a jam. Do you need your windshield wipers replaced? You need a brake light fixed? You need some quick service? They'll help you find the right part or point you to the nearest local repair shop for help. The professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts are your one-stop shop for all things auto do-it-yourself, and you can find what you need in-store or online. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit us at O'ReillyAuto.com/MeatEater. That's O'ReillyAuto.com/MeatEater. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today. You ever get that feeling you're stuck inside staring at screens and a primal urge kicks in? You crave wide open spaces, fresh air, the chance to connect with the land. Well, maybe it's time to find your own piece of the wild, but searching for property can be a maze. That's where Land.com comes in. They got millions of listings across the country, from mountain ranches to hidden fishing holes. Their search tools are like a seasoned guide helping you narrow down what you want. Land.com isn't just about buying and selling. It's about finding a place to hunt, fish, explore, or simply sit by a campfire and listen to the crickets. So head over to Land.com today to turn one day into today, because trust me, there's nothing quite like the feeling of standing on your own piece of earth.
Here's a quick thought. What if you didn't buy into kind of this intellectual position like we're talking about, and you were just like, man, we've got a right to do what we do because of all the positive things, the things in the plus column that come from hunting. Like, regardless of anything else, us just simply saying there's more wildlife in North America than anywhere in the world. Our big game species, we have the strongest big game in the world in many categories. And it's come because of the funding of hunting. It's come because of scientific wildlife management. So we're just going to do it because it works. Not because of any deep thought. It just works. If your desire is to have sustainable populations of game, it's easy for me to dive deep into like all this stuff that I love to talk about, like we're talking about. But also there's this other thing that's just real simple. It's like, why, like the anti-hunting community, they want animals on the landscape. Well, so do we. And it's been working with us being at the driver's seat.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'll play devil's advocate because I like this. I like what you're saying.
Yeah.
And that's all. And I think what you're saying is the surface level. Let's go and test what you just said, right? Let's go and then examine if there's something that's analogous to that. And I think maybe the war analogy makes sense. If you went to somebody and said, we are the safest country in terms of external threats that there is. What we've been doing from a wartime strategy has we're safer than everyone else in terms of somebody coming into our country and harming us. And I said, yep, cool. You want to stay safe? Yes, I do. Well, then I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. We're like, what about looking at how we conduct war, making it more palatable from a morality standpoint. Let's look at who we bomb and how we bomb them, or who we sanction and how we sanction them, and let's get better at this act, even though it's working right now. I think there is some analogy in that to what society, like what society is asking us to do with hunting. I think they're saying, is it good? Is it good for everybody? Is it good for the animals? And we're saying hound hunting, bait hunting, all this stuff. Yes, we're saying, yes, it is. Yes, it is. Look over here. It is. And then they're saying, but what about the guy that speared the bear on YouTube? And we're saying, but that's an isolated incident. If you want to see the propagation of these wildlife species, you have to allow us to conduct this. And you have to understand that it's imperfect in lots of ways. And I think that's what's happening here.
Yeah.
I feel like we're on the right side of history, and I feel like history has proved that out. But that I don't think that smooths out the complicated societal and cultural factors that we're talking about.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't.
And so here we are, that's a more philosophical debate, but then you have the real idea that things are being attacked that we love, right?
I just had a brilliant idea, Ben. I think we're gonna draw a line from like Central Texas up to like, Manitoba or Saskatchewan. And we're going to give the anti-hunters the West. We're going to give them the whole Western U.S., okay? And we're going to say, you guys are the king of wildlife management over there. And then everywhere from Arkansas to the Atlantic, we're going to let me and I'm trying to think of a good comrade. I need a person.
Somebody that would help you and Shane Mahoney.
Me and Shane Mahoney. I was thinking somebody a little more, I don't
somebody
know.
less magnanimous.
Yeah, maybe.
A sidekick.
Somebody with
you and Colby from Bear Hunting Magazine.
How about three? Me, Colby, and Shane Mahoney get to manage the Eastern U.S., and we'll touch base in 50 years. We'll see how things are going.
Yeah, I think you'd be looking at a very emotionally distraught western half of the United States, who has taken away a lot of the protections and a lot of the value systems that we have for wildlife in terms of how we relate to them. They overpopulated, and then they had to start killing them, like we do oftentimes. Take a look at APHIS, the government, the USDA APHIS team, and what they kill each year.
Right.
They would have the biggest APHIS team ever, and they would have to, because they wouldn't want to confront the emotionality of having to kill stuff because they're humans and they take up habitat and they take up resources and there's a competition for resources going on. They would have to be lying to themselves going, we at least we're not killing them for ego. Mm-hmm. Like, oh yeah, well, okay, holier than thou. How's it working over there?
The other thing that they would have a lot of over there, wolves. There would be lots of wolves. Yeah, I do. I mean, if we could make the case to have some like 2 islands, right? I would if I had enough money, I would buy 2 islands, and I would allow Paul Bashir and some folks to run one, and I'd run another one, and I just guarantee I know this to be true, that our island would be more well balanced. The people would be happier. There would be more freedoms. There would be a better value system for wildlife, man. And I wish that was enough. I wish my knowledge of it was enough and your knowledge was enough. But it's not enough to stop a bunch of people in California from jumping on a fucking Zoom call. Because imagine that, dude. You're a busy guy. You're a family man. You're religious. You go to church. You go to sports with your kids. You do podcasts. You work for a mediator. You do all that stuff. Do you have time to firebomb game commission form emails? Wow.
Like, do you ever think about that? Have you ever thought?
Well, no. That your point is well taken. But I'm going to throw in I tell you what, these backcountry hunters and anglers forum emails are pretty good. They've been sending out. They sent out one to Florida when Florida was the Florida Game Commission was trying to decide their bear management strategy, and it was reported to me that it was the good side of the story I just told you about Washington, where the Game Commission said, "Hey, we had, I think it was over 1,000 emails that came in that were forum emails that were pro bear hunting that came into Florida." Additionally, BHA did one for the recent New Jersey thing, which we didn't win on, but at least the voice was there. So that, and BHA is certainly not the only people that are doing that at all. But they do a good job of it.
They do, yeah. And I think it's
So
I'm a part of that.
Time, Ben O'Brien. That's what I'm trying to say.
Hit your face. So yeah, I mean, you're not wrong, but that's a new thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's new.
Yeah.
I'm not. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody can write in and tell me in years past, in 80s, 90s, and decades that I really wasn't active in this community the way I am now.
You didn't have email in 1984 when you were not born?
-1. No, I didn't.
Yeah.
But I mean, was there an active a group as BHA has become over time? When I was coming up, I never thought there was. I certainly wasn't involved in one. The single species organizations. There isn't a bear hunting association that has the power of the Rocky Mountain Elk Association.
Right.
There isn't, these single species organizations kind of get in a box and sometimes are stuck in that box, right?
Yeah.
And the Sportsman's Alliance, we've had those guys on a couple of times.
That's such a good organization, man. I mean,
and they can't seem to get traction. They don't have 100,000 members like Anonymous for the Voiceless. They don't have Instagram that has 300,000 people on there screaming about eating vegetables. But that's what the other side has. And Sportsman's Alliance is dedicated to fighting these smaller battles, but they don't have any steam within the hunting world. They're not like the thing on the tip of everybody's tongue.
I think
the hell is going on?
I think with every hunting license sold in North America, you ought to have to buy a membership to the Sportsman's Alliance. I mean,
I do too.
And it's not every time you highlight somebody, others might feel like they're being left out on purpose. They're not. I mean, just Sportsman's Alliance. I'm familiar with them. They have a column in our magazine, Bear Hunting Magazine, and they're just so. I love those guys, man. I really do.
I do too. I've known Brian Lynn for a decade, and he's been on the show. Was on the show earlier this year, and he and their CEO Evan Hutchfeld has been on. I never know how to say his last name. Sorry, Evan. It's complicated. Hutzenfeld, something like that.
Yeah.
But Evan's a great dude. I've hunted bears with him and with Brian Lynn over hounds. In fact,
really,
in Idaho in the Sawtooth and over bait. And
I didn't realize you were such a barbarian, Ben.
Yes, I am I might look like a hipster. I might talk about logical fallacies and political rhetoric, but I'm a chest-beaten barbarian myself. And dude, I hunted over bait for years in Quebec and enjoyed myself and never thought of anything other than this being the proper way to hunt for the place that I was in. You know? I'm not going to throw a bag of corn down in Montana in the Gallatin National Forest. I'd be in trouble if I did, but I wouldn't anyway, even if I could do it, because it's just not the way to hunt them. And so anyway, I say all that to say I do think the Sportsman's Alliance is the group. And again, when I first came in the industry, I decided I'm going to question what they say. And I don't want to be a part of some sort of, movement that has only insular credibility. Mm-hmm. And as the more that I've learned about the opposition to what we do, the more that I know that those folks are important, those folks are Brian and Evan and all the folks that do what they do. They're underfunded. They're understaffed. They can't, they're punching above their weight. I guess I'll say.
I had this thought the other day when I plugged in Brian's article. Those guys are every day confronted with very, very negative things about hunting. Like their job is to deal with the dirty stuff, the bad stuff. And, I actually had the thought of like them, how we're aptly so, the culture in the U.S. is to, support our first responders and our military, which we should do. I think in the hunting community, we need to like throw some shout outs and encouragement to these guys that are fighting for a living, like at Sportsman's Alliance. I mean, these are just people. I know I get down sometimes when I see some of the things that we're up against, and these guys have to do it every day. And I know a lot of those groups have a lot of turnover, and I think it's because of the heaviness of the job. And we also know that those guys aren't in it for the money. They're not becoming millionaires at all. They're doing it.
Yeah, trust me. NGOs in our space, conservation organizations, I know for a fact, aren't shelling out the big bucks for people to come and work there. And I know Sportsman's Alliance. I know where it is. I've known it since it was, a couple of people in Columbus, Ohio. Yeah. And again, yeah, as I look at the validity of all our conservation organizations and move through that world, I've increasingly agreed with you that these are the guys that are doing it. And it is, as people try to divide us as hunters, right, between lefty hunters and, the new version of kind of the green decoy BHA member hunter and the old version of the right wing banquet, going RMEF guy and possibly Sportsman's Alliance guy. I think you're a good example, and maybe I am too, of all those ideas being important to me. I don't think of this along party lines. As I think about defending bear hunting, I want to support the Sportsman's Alliance. And as I think about defending our national forests and our public lands and the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge and the boundary waters, and I want to fight for sensible mining, sensible oil and gas development, better forest management throughout our country. I don't divide that up. I feel as passionately about that as I do about defending bear hunting in Florida and New Jersey. And all I'm looking for is really objective thought and constructive thought within our wildlife management process and the systems that we have that work. That's all I'm looking for. Just do that. And don't come crash our party with all these bears because you have, there's a couple of bears in the corner of your kid's room that are wearing suspenders. And it's like, stop doing that. That's all I'm asking.
Bears don't even have shoulders when they stand upright. How would suspenders even stay on them? I mean, that's the rational argument there, Ben.
And bears stand outside in the rain all the time. Why would they need a raincoat and a yellow hat? Like, why would they even need that? It doesn't make any sense.
Brilliant.
They should be giving those raincoats to people in need and not wearing them around the damn woods. I've had enough of this shit. But yeah, man, it's funny. It's funny. I don't know if it's funny how all this stuff is intertwined. Like, you could start down, if you're willing to go into the rhetorical world of what we're talking about. If you're willing to kind of go in there, it's all intertwined. All of the things that we do are intertwined. I mean, all of the ideas we present can all lead back to bear hunting somehow, right? They can all lead back to the restrictions of what we do. And I think that's a really fun part of it, man, where we can always find our way back to the core principles of hunting and why we love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not hard. And there's always something out there that for us to talk about. So hopefully we'll be able to have you back here, at least every month. My plan is every month to talk about, to look at and talk about some things that are happening in our world. What might be smart. I haven't thought about this till now, but we'll call Brian Lynn up at a Sportsman's Alliance and we'll partner with him on this.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And we'll have him help us highlight some of the things that are important to them and some of the things that we think warrant some more discussion, and keep this going and again, push back on stuff where we can too. Make sure we're not just falling into that trap.
Ben, several years ago, I was up in Michigan, and I've been several times to the Michigan Bear Hunters Association banquet. And I hunted with those guys, hound hunted with them for 7 days one time. Well, 6 days I hunted, and I hunted with a different family every day. So I ended up hunting with, 5 different families in 6 days. And what I noted, and those guys, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal to them because it was just their life. But what I noted, even in their kids and their wives, in every part of their world when it revolved around bear hunting with hounds, is they had built into their culture the idea that to be a bear hunter in Michigan is to be proactive and to be a fighter, to preserve what we love to do. And I mean, even the kids, it's just normal. Yeah. To be a bear hunter every single year, we have to, Michigan bear hunters and Wisconsin bear hunters as well. Both of those groups, incredibly well organized, well funded, well put together groups that are basically very active in state government, extremely active in state government. The people are active. I mean, you go to Wisconsin Bear Hunter Association banquet in the spring, and there'll be, I don't want to say the number because I'll get it wrong, a lot of people there. I mean, a lot of people. I know the Michigan Bear Hunter banquets I went to had 500 people there. And that's a big deal to gather 500 people from at a statewide organization.
Hell yeah.
The point is that they built into their culture this idea that it's our job to be proactive in maintaining this thing that we do. We've got to be fighters. And I think that's what's got to be built into the North American hunter's mind. And not in fighter, we probably need to use a different word than fighters, because we're not, again, it's not against flesh and blood we're fighting, but it's our job to be aware. It's our job to be proactive. It's our job to be knowledgeable. It's our job to be able to say it and to,
maybe it's educators. I mean, like, let's all be freaking educators, man. Let's educate anybody who wants to listen,
and have a lifestyle that's kind of built around that with your kids, your family, And I just saw that so strongly with those guys. That was, I think that's what we're missing sometimes. We're so comfortable with just everything being as it is, and it's always going to be this way. And that's just not the truth. Ben, let me close with one thought. If we close, just one final thought. Years ago, it might have taken 25 to 30 years to turn the narrative in this country into something else. Now, because of technology, because of communication, because of social media, what used to take 30 years is now taking 5 years. So that's another just point of why, guarding the gate, these ideas are so important.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I do think we said this when we were talking to the animal rights folks. It's like when you go up to somebody and show them a slaughterhouse video and you say, "You like that?" And they say, "No." You'd be like, "Join us." And they say, "Okay." Are you really creating like a healthy movement there? Are you having people come into your movement in a way that's healthy? I say no, and I think that's borne out by what we see. But exactly what you said, I think, is true. Like we need to find a way to get people in a very healthy way. Bring them in the ways that we already have, expressing, like you said, educating them, expressing our values, educating on conservation, on wildlife management, on the philosophies we discussed here today. And then once we get them in here, we got to say, hey, look, if you really feel like we feel, then you got to look around you and see that there are a lot of people that want to take it away. And the combination of creating a healthy movement of people that have a really good perspective on why they're here, and then giving them the knowledge that this is under threat and you can help. You don't have to fight. You don't have to punch people, but you have to educate them. Tell them what's up. Tell them why you love this. And that's how, guys like Jonathan Wilkins, who's your buddy down there in Arkansas, who's an African-American waterfowl hunter, anybody from any gender, any identity, any cultural background, any place in our society can tell everyone, this is why I love this, and I'm going to fight for this, and I'm going to educate everyone on this so it stays the way that it is. Maybe that's a good combo. It's the first I've ever articulated that, but maybe that's the way that we can build something that's really long-standing and not only defensive in its nature.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
I like it.
We're going to explore the shit out of that in the months to come, man. And when I was thinking about this and thinking about wanting to have you on more, I mean, it's the perfect thing to give people pretty regular perspective in 2021 on a good way to uphold what we do and keep things moving in the direction we want them to go.
Right on.
Thank you, Clay Newcomb.
The other thing I'm passionate about is skinning squirrels fast and making squirrel tail Christmas ornaments. So we could talk about that too.
Yeah, we're going to have Clay's craft hour.
Yes.
Where you come in. Yeah, if you haven't seen Clay's video on how to make a squirrel tail Christmas ornament, you're not a hillbilly. You're not a redneck. You don't care about those values, you bastards. You want to make any kind of call out there to the rednecks and hillbillies to join the squirrel tail ornament movement, or is there any sort of
I think it's like a litmus test for being a hillbilly is if you click and watch that video and have positive emotions afterwards. If that happens to you, you might be a hillbilly.
You just might be. I was looking at some old pictures of hunting when I was a kid, and I'm like, dude, we were hillbillies. Holy shit. We were the hillbilliest people I've ever seen, and I love it. And I still do today.
It's a term of endearment to me.
It's only endearment. Hillbilly, especially. Redneck's been kind of turned around, but hillbilly.
Yes, exactly.
Even the ones from Beverly. We're good. So, all right, Clay Newcomb, get out of here. Go guard the gate. We'll see you next time, brother.
Thanks, Ben.
See ya. That's it. That's all. Another episode of the Hunting Collective podcast in the books. It's almost the break. Phil, so you guys know, we got to give Phil the engineer and Phil Jr. Hayden. His real name is Hayden. We can reveal that now. We like Hayden. We hope he sticks around, even though we mistreat him. Hayden and Phil, our podcast team, and Corinne, the producer, work incredibly hard right before our holiday break at our company to pack in as many podcasts as humanly possible so that they can actually get a break, go on vacation, and that those podcasts still are coming into your iTunes. So if you're out there and you are wondering how it is that we're not working on the holidays, but you're still getting 4 or 5 weekly Meat Eater podcasts, it's because of Hayden and Phil and Corinne that is happening. And so what you want to do is just bombard at Phil Taylor 25 with as many thank yous as you possibly can as you listen to the best of episodes of THC, you listen to Remy Warren's podcast, Cutting the Distance, you listen to Bent, the fishing podcast on the Meat Eater Network, you listen to the Meat Eater podcast with Steve Ranella and Giannis Patelis and Ryan Callahan, you listen to Mark Kenyon's Wired to Hunt. I miss any, Phil?
Cal's Week in Review.
Cal's Week in Review. Cal, sorry, buddy. All that stuff, man. We have a pile of content that comes out every week, and it just doesn't magically appear there. There has to be somebody like Phil at the helm of the ship, steering us into the future bravely, boldly. We're going where no man has gone before. Phil Jr. at his side. Phil, any commentary? Please give a speech.
No, you wrapped it up. I appreciate the thoughts, Ben. And I'm happy to do it. Yeah, I'm very excited for Christmas, and it is no sweat getting these podcasts done. I'm glad to keep the content coming throughout the break because I know that I would appreciate it if I were a listener of this show, which I am not. I'd like to say I've never heard an episode, but if I were, I would. I would like to have the episodes coming over the break, and I'm more than happy to get it done. So thank you, Ben, for putting this all together.
No problem. I would say if you're listening, if you're laying by a warm fire, drinking eggnog, singing Christmas carols with your family, drinking White Claw heavily and crying in the corner like I might be, you should remember that there's people out there like Phil that are got your fucking back and they're supporting you even though you've done nothing to deserve it this holiday season. So that's my pep talk. Is that good, Phil?
As a pep talk? No, that was very bad.
Bad. All right, Yep. Cut that. Cut that. We'll bring it back in something better. All right, we're going to get 2 beautiful weeks of best ofs. We are going to crank out some of the best moments of the last year. It has been a trying year for all of us, so thank you for sticking in there. Thank you for listening to this program. Thanks for tolerating our jokes and our poop stories. Thanks for digging into the hard stuff with us in terms of faith in hunting, veganism, animal rights, predator management in this country, all the things that we've touched on in this last year, all very important to us. And it's also important to have a good laugh. Never take yourself too seriously. We sure don't here at the Hunting Collective. So we hope you have a great holiday season. Phil, tell these people bye.
Goodbye. Have a great holiday.
Too long, 'cause I can't go a week without doing wrong.
After 3 years of work, our follow-up to the Meat Eater Fish and Game Cookbook is here. It's the Meat Eater Outdoor Cookbook, wild game recipes for the grill, smoker, campfire, and camp stove. Here is your book for everything that's best cooked or eaten outside. From grilling to open fire cooking to Dutch ovens to smokers to barbecue to backpacking meals to how to pull off the perfect fish fry, with pit stops along the way for lessons about Ice Age cooking methods and the best 5 ways to construct a cooking fire you can be proud of. And of course, we're focusing on wild game and fish here with over 100 recipes, including stuffed venison burgers 3 ways, wild duck with ahi verde sauce, a jerky made with cola, a gin and tonic made with fire-charred lemons, and grilled frog legs made with a sticky sweet sauce. This ain't your normal cookbook, so be prepared to be surprised. Get your copy now. For more info, visit themeateater.com or buy it wherever books are sold.